Hello, everyone, and welcome to O-Teatron. I am Noura Murad. I am a researcher, a dramaturg, and the creator of O-Teatron. Sahar?
Hi everyone, Sahar Assaf is here. I'm a Lebanese director and producer, and I'm currently with Golden Thread Productions as artistic director. And I want to thank Muna very much for the opportunity she gave us at Golden Thread to contribute to this session. Thanks, Muna. Back to you.
Thank you. We would like to welcome all the guests in the room of O-Teatron and ATHE, but also all the people who are watching us in whole round. Let me first start by introducing O-Teatron performances available online. O-Teatron is a platform that aims to enhance access and visibility of mediated performances originating from diverse global contexts. It also endeavors to create meaningful conversations while bridging connections and acknowledging the different aesthetics of doing theater and being on the stage and in the world here and now. In the first edition, O-Teatron focuses on Syrian stages, particularly the performances that came out after the post-uprising moment. And we are very happy, despite the darkness of the moment, to introduce Noura Murad. Noura?
Yes, Muna, thank you for having me.
Noura, allow me to introduce you. Noura is the founder of Leish Troupe and the director of Survival, one of the performances that are already available, and I hope that you had the chance to watch. Noura is an actress, choreographer, founder and artistic director of Leish Troupe since its foundation in 1999. She graduated from the Higher Institute of Dramatic Art, the acting department in Damascus in 1995, and then was delegated to France on a practical course dedicated to physical theater and its teaching methods, whereby she joined parallel courses of modern dance and choreography. She headed the dance department at the High Institute of Dramatic Arts in Damascus for 2 years, between 2013 and 2015. I'll add shortly the link to the bios of all the artists and moderators with us. And Sahar, I will leave the next moments to you.
Thanks, Muna, and lovely to have you, Noura. And it's my pleasure to introduce our second speaker for this panel, Ossama Halal. Ossama is a theater maker. Hi, Ossama, first.
Hello.
Hello,
Thanks.
lovely to have you. And I know, Ossama, you're joined by Mark, if I'm not mistaken, who will be translating, but we'll get to that in a minute. Let me first introduce Ossama, everyone. Ossama Halal is a theater maker and the founder of Koon Theater Group. He graduated from the Higher Institute of Dramatic Arts in Damascus in 2004. He founded Koon Group in Damascus in 2012, which presented many performances, including street theater, alternative space shows, movement-based and experimental performances. In 2013, he moved to Beirut and immediately made a name for himself with his powerful performance Above Zero, which I had watching and giving Ossama and his group a standing ovation. I remember at the time the whole theater erupted in a standing ovation. In Beirut, he established the Koon Theater studio and lab, which produces performances and organizes artistic workshops aimed at both amateurs and professionals. Halal also creates politically engaged theater for marginalized and culturally underserved communities, often staging work outside traditional venues. His practice breaks barriers between art and society, blending theatrical forms and collaborating with multidisciplinary artists. Through Koon Theater Lab, he fosters ongoing artistic exchange, training, and development. Welcome, Ossama. Thanks for being here. And I think I should just give a minute to Mark to introduce himself, if that's okay, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So I am Mark. I am currently managing a little bit director of production here at Koon Theater. I have been working with Ossama for the past 3 years, I think, and we've gone together with a very fascinating journey together. If I'm not mistaken, I also watched a few of Sahar's theater plays, which I enjoyed very much because she was also a teacher at my university, the American University of Beirut. And that's it. I'm glad to be here with you.
Thank you both. Back to you, Mona.
All right, let's start with our first question. Just a second. I think I lost my track here.
As you pull your questions, I'll just say to encourage also our participants to think about their questions, our attendees in the room. We will begin with few questions to our panelists, and then we'll open it up for questions from everyone attending. So you'll get a chance to speak directly to the artists. But yeah, Mona.
Yeah, so I have the first question that we have is centered around the performances. One of them is the other side of the garden and survival. Both performances were created in a very, very, very specific moment in the history of Syria, and that was the response to the post-uprising momentum. Noura, Survival reflects that moment in Damascus that heavily relies on the internal emotions of the artists, as also in the midst of war and dilemma. Ossama, you used as well Hans Christian Andersen's tale, Story of a Mother, to reflect on the suffering of Syrian mothers, but also other themes such as fear, memory, oppression. And you used also like the aesthetic of the mask. Can you tell us briefly about that moment of coming up with the idea of the performance and the urgency of it? And that question.
Please, Noura.
Yeah. So survival was, in fact, a decision to tell the other side of the story of Syrians during the war, because when the revolution started and the war began in after 6 months or 1 year, everybody was talking about the victim's side of the story, and I understand that, and it's very important. But there was another side of the story about the survivals, who's still living in, if we can say, a safe or something like safe areas, who continue their lives every day. So we decided to talk about that, and we spent a lot of time trying to get a money production for the performance, and we couldn't. After that, when we started to work in the institute, in fact, the same team of the performance was working with me in the institute in dance department. We decided to, you ask about the urgent to do it. Yes, there was a very, very urgent moment for us. It was about how students, young generation, are really fed up of everything and don't have any kind of hope or even trust themselves that they can do anything at all. And we started to feel that they even don't really believe us when we speak with them in the classes, because we're always talking about the possibility to do the things, the knowledge to do the things, and the need to try the things. And after that, we said, okay, we will do it in fact, we produce it. We did it in our cost, just to tell our side of the story, and to make our students know that they can do anything they want, even in the middle of the war.
Thank you, Noura. I have to clarify that Noura lives inside Syria, Ossama lives in Beirut, and the circumstances create different moments as well. Ossama.
أول شيء أنا كتير سعيد إنه عم بعمل هذا النقاش معكم، وبتمنى إنه نحسن نوصل لأفكار جديدة حلوة.
First of all, Osama just wanted to say that he's very happy to be part of this conversation and he hopes that it will bring on a lot of good ideas.
أول شيء أنا بدي وقف شوي عند محل الأمهات السوريات أو فنان سوري. أو أنا بالنسبة لي بحس حالي إنه الموضوعات اللي أنا بشتغل عليها بشتغل كتير في شيء عضوي بيربط بيني وبين ما يحدث. يعني كتير بحس بتواصل مع لبنان، مع فلسطين، مع أي مكان بيتقاطع بنفس الأسئلة اللي بعيشها أنا. فأنا شوي بكون أنا جنسيتي سورية، لكن أنا بنتمي لقبيلة المسرح. بفضل هذا الشيء.
Just stopping a little bit at the topic of Syrian mothers, the Syrian artist. So these are topics that he works on. He works a lot on organic things that connects him with what happens. A lot of things that and about communicating about Lebanon and Palestine. All of these things bring on questions that he lives on a daily basis. And really, he might be of a Syrian nationality, but he feels like he belongs to, if we can say, the nationality of the theater.
بالنسبة لي The Other Side of the Garden هو كان في لحظة أنا عبالي إني أنا أعملها، هي عيش حداد، حط نقطة، عيش أعمل عزا أنا والمجموعة لسنين من الخيبات اللي عشناها.
As for the other side of the garden, he wanted to take a moment of mourning that would represent all of the disappointments that we had lived throughout the years.
فاخترنا قصة أم اللي هي أنا شفتها ببرنامج أنيميشن أنا وصغير، حكاية أم لكريستيان أندرسون، اللي بتحكي عن الأم وبيجي ملك الموت بياخد الابن وهي بتعيش رحلة لترجع ابنها. فاكتشفنا حالنا أنه نحن عم نحكي عن سلسلة من الفقدانات اللي هي حاضرة لحد هلأ.
And the story came actually from an animated program from Christian Andersen, which tells the story of a mother who went to the king of death so that she may take her son back. And she was on a journey to take her son back. And along that, we are talking about a series that talks about loss that are present throughout.
Yes.
Sahar?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you both. I'll take it from here. Thank you for this context, and I'll ask a little before we delve a little deeper into the themes and the contextualizing the plays. I'll ask more of a practical question, perhaps, because both of your work relies heavily on devising and collaborating with the cast and the team of designers. So our question is, how challenging is it to be an ensemble or a collective in the times of war, where staying in Damascus, for instance, or even in Lebanon is not guaranteed? And how is the situation different now? And really, we're asking this question to ask more about the act of storytelling, especially through theater, as a form of resistance. Do you see it as such? Noura, perhaps we begin with you again.
Yeah. I will start with the idea of working with the group. In fact, I'm struggling with this all my career. First of all, not only the group work, collective work is challenging always. It was always challenging in Syria. First of all, because we don't have a real concept of really working together. This is not in our culture, in fact. We lived a very long time in dictatorship that don't give a chance to people to even be together, So generally to lead a group of dance or theater or any artistic group needs some kind of leading the people, not directing them. So we always worked with that. When the war came, it became more difficult because most of the people left. It's not guaranteed at all when you can stay or you can to continue working. There was problems with funding. There was a problems always with places. You know, there were people who cannot really move freely in the city from their homes to their hustles and come back, blah blah. And yes, it wasn't our work during the war. It was not only a resistance; it was a surviving solution, because the theater, the rehearsing in theaters was the only place that you can really feel safe, feel like you are really can connect with other people without any kind of political questions. It was really a chance to recover and to give a safe environment to others to express themselves. And that wasn't really available to all Syrian people during the war. It was a really resistance in one hand, and surviving real, you know, emotional, intellectual, even physical surviving. Yeah.
أنا بضيف شوي إنه السيستم بسوريا ما خلق، أعطانا يأس من فكرة العمل الجماعي. ما في موديل ناجح لأي نموذج جماعي، ما في حزب ناجح، ما في فريق رياضة ناجح، ما في فرقة، ما في مؤسسة. ما يعني العمل الجماعي هو دائما شيء هيك بتتخيله ما له ملموس. مشان هيك بحس انه انخلق افراد مبدعين بسوريا.
Ossama will add that in Syria there is no actual collective work. There is no successful model for collective work, neither a political party nor even a sports team, not an institution. So it's really just imaginary for them, and that is why the focus really is on individuals shining instead of collective.
ونقطة تانية بحس إنه العمل الجماعي هو شيء ماله سهل، بيترك ندبات بالروح، بيوجع، في تخلي، بدك تقبل إنك تتخلى عن كتير إشياء ذاتية كرمال المجموعة تمشي لقدام.
And collective work is not easy. He even goes on to say that it leaves scars on the soul. It actually hurts a little bit. And so yeah, there is this challenging part to it.
وأنا هون هيك بس نقطة إنه عكس نظرية أينشتاين اللي بيقول فيها إنه غبي اللي بيعيد نفس التجربة مرتين وبده يتوقع نتيجة مختلفة. لا، أنا شوي عنيد وبحس إنه بستمتع بإني أنا عم عيد نفس التجربة لحتى أوصل لنتيجة مختلفة بعلاقتي مع المجموعة.
And so contrary to what Einstein says, that I'm not really sure what the quote is in English, but so the one that repeats the same thing twice is like considered dumb. On the contrary, Ossama thinks, no, if he repeats the same thing, maybe that will bring on something new and better.
Muna, you're muted.
Thank you, Ossama. And I remember that in light of what both of you said, Ossama, I remember like years ago when you told me when I came to Beirut, it was the first moment where I felt that I can express an opinion. And I think that that element of working collectively is very, very difficult inside Syria in particular, but also Lebanon has its own set of challenges. And in light of, as well of what you have said, Noura, you have a specific vision of what survival is, and how the performance survival reflected a different element of resistance. Can you talk a little bit about that, and about that movement of the bodies, about that periphery, the hands and the foot gestures, and about the bodies who are isolated, yet they are struggling, and the idea of surrender as a form of resistance as well?
Yeah, it's a big question. And when you live in a war, it's not really about surviving. It's not only about being alive, because you cannot avoid death during the war. It's around you. It's everywhere. It can comes any minute. So you cannot like think about it or deal with it. You just forget about it. You know, that's what happened with me. At least I'm someone who decided to keep living, working, and do everything I want to do. And when the bomb will come, it will come. I cannot avoid it. So it's surviving for me. It's not about to stay alive. No, it's about how to continue living under this very hard and violent and very unlogic circumstances. I don't believe isolation and surrender. Both these two ideas are really linked to a perspective of the body and the existence in the world, in the planet, you know, because isolation for me, it's not to be alone, it's to be with yourself. And when you have the courage really to be with yourself and to know what's happening within you, you can deal with whatever happening around you, because the surrounding, it's only a reflection of your own body, you know, what's happening within your body. So in fact, my work is based on working on the intimate and the very personal stories of the performers that they share with me, and we try together to go deeper and deeper to arrive to a moment that the body is not, that the body, when it's express itself or tells the story, it became universal body, not a Syrian body or Noura's body. It's not personal. And the idea, the magic of the theater for me is that when you go farther, deeper and deeper to your personal body, you become more clear to the audience. As long as you are really able to be honest with what you're dealing with. So it's not about that we are isolated from the surrounding. It's exactly the opposite. We're trying to understand what's happening with our bodies, within our bodies, to know, to understand what's happening in our surrounding, and to have a choice how to deal with it.
Thank you, Noura. It's a form of internalization. Sahar, I will leave the fourth question to you, actually.
I think it's a beautiful idea, Noura, to say, like, to reflect on the body as a tool here. And it's a great segue to my question to Ossama, because I feel like memory, in your case, Ossama, is used as a tool. And I want to bring one moment that I found extremely powerful in the performance, where one of the performers appears to be confronting the audiences as he asks, and I'm quoting him in a translation to English, "Who has stolen my memory? Every day 100 new stories, 100 new crimes, and every day we carry our lives unfazed. And we forget, and I don't want to forget anymore because it's not normal." And he goes on to say at the end of that piece, "I want to hold them accountable." And I obviously couldn't but think about what's happening in Syria, but also in Gaza, more specifically the ongoing genocide. How do you see memory functioning in theater and art in general as, of course, a personal act of grief, but as a political tool? And what role does that give us artists witnessing genocide?
بالنسبة لي السيستم بيخاف من فكرة الذاكرة، لأنه الذاكرة هي بتحرض على السؤال، والسؤال بحرض أوقات على الفعل، وأوقات بحرض نسأل أسئلة إلى علاقة بالعدالة ومفهوم العدالة.
So for him, the system is afraid actually of memory, or the regime rather than the system, because it encourages questioning. And questioning من بعد الموسيقى
وممكن يقودنا للعدالة.
And so questioning will eventually lead to justice, which they are afraid of.
بالنسبة لي كمان أنا بشوف إنه هو المسرح بيعطينا فرصة كبني آدمين كبشر إنه نحن نخلق السردية الخاصة فينا اللي بتخلينا نكون وكأنه نحن عنا شهادة كوثيقة تاريخية عم نقدمها بهي اللحظة، كوثيقة بإمكاننا نحرض الجمهور مش لحتى يفهم بس لحتى يسأل.
And so the theater also gives us a chance to create our own narrative that makes us like having a testimony, a historical document that we can use to incite the public or instigate the public to just understand or to ask questions.
برحلتي بالجانب الآخر من الحديقة صادفنا جمعية المسؤولين عن المفقودين في لبنان اللي معتقلين بسوريا صار لهم أكثر من 30 سنة. فبتكتشف إنه مفهوم الذاكرة ومفهوم الحكاية وقت تحطه ضمن ستيتمنت سياسي، ضمن موقف سياسي، ضمن هذا الموقع بيخلق حرارة مختلفة عن الأداة كأداة عادية يعني.
And in the other side of the counter of the garden, we had the chance to have a conversation with organizations that dealt with those that were lost in Syria, that those in Lebanon had lost contact with for over 30 years, of people that were incarcerated there for over 30 years. And so this was the concept of memory here, of the story. It's placed within a political statement, within a political position, within the side that creates a different heat or synergy as a tool or as a normal tool.
Yes.
I have a question for Noura. You mentioned that art cannot stop the wheel of violence from spinning, but it can showcase other spaces outside that wheel. It can also dispel the fear of others, or at least shake the foundations upon which this fear is built within the continuing atrocities happening everywhere today in Suwaida, in Gaza. How can we maintain that power that art has in dispelling fear from the other, specifically today and in Syria? And this is also a form of political response.
I'm always looking to the theater as the most democratic space ever, because you can go there as an artist or in a group and tell whatever you want in whatever form you want, and people choose to come to you, to listen to you, to interfere with you, to, you know. And I believe that being with others in the theater, because, you know, today, unfortunately, that today, as like yesterday, we are facing in Syria that fact every day, that you need to show your ID on the streets to prove where are you from, or whatever the police who is there want to know about you. In theater, you never can do this. Everybody can go to theater. Everybody can sit in the hall. Everybody can watch the performance. And it's the same for the team. The team of the performance, it's not based about anything but artistic agreement, if you want. So politically, if you want, the real democracy for me is theater. And in Syria, during the war, and even now it's a little bit different, because now I don't believe that, for me personally, it's very, very difficult now to think about a performance. We are doing workshops and training programs. We are planning for them now. But for all my life, I belong to theater, because this is politically the most free and democratic space in the world. And you can like go with it farther and farther, and be closer and closer to the audience, to different kind of audience, when you, because it's also different when you present your work in your country, or when you go in tour and you are facing other audiences, with other perspectives, with other cultures. And yeah, this is the main, if you want, reason that I'm working in this domain.
Thank you, Noura.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Noura. That's a powerful reminder about the democratic process in theater, and how important it is, and how free that space is. And perhaps it's that freedom that allows us the chance to be vulnerable. And I want to build on that and give Ossama the opportunity, one, to respond to anything that Noura said, Ossama, that you feel you'd like to comment on, and also to give you a chance to reflect a little on the theme of fear, because we've noticed, Mona and I, in our conversation, that fear is a common theme between the at least the plays that we saw in the series. So is it becoming one of the recurring aesthetics on the Syrian stage in particular? And how do you see it? How does it seem to appear to you?
يعني أنا بحس إنه الخوف هو موتور أساسي لتحريض كتير أشياء. بعتقد كل شخص بالكرة الأرضية بحس بشكل أو بآخر إنه الخوف هو دافع ليقول شيء.
So Ossama is saying that for him, fear is like a catalyst, and so it pushes everyone to seek to save something.
وأنا بحس إنه باللحظة اللي بكون عم بشتغل فيها وما بكون خايف، بحس في مشكلة في شيء ماله معنى، بكون عم ببحث بالمكان المصح.
And if he is working and he feels no fear, for him there's something wrong there. He's looking up in the wrong place.
بس أنا عم بحكي عن ديناميكية خوف مختلفة عن اللي بتخليك بتلبكك وبتخليك قاعد بأرضك. بالعكس، أنا بحس إنه عم نحسن بالمسرح نتبادل هشاشة كمجموعة، ونقبل نشوف ربما أخطاء، ربما عيوب، ربما لحظات هشة بتقودنا بصدق إنه نقبل نتعايش هذا الشيء بقوة.
And so he's talking about a different fear dynamic that not the one that makes you sit at home. On the contrary, something that makes you better at the theater, where we exchange our fragilities, and that at the end of the road, there will be our strength will show instead of our weaknesses.
وأنا بحس كمان إنه الرواية اللي بدنا نقولها كتير بركز على فكرة إنه ما بقولها كضحية، وما بقدمها كشخص ضحية. بالعكس أنا بحاول كتير نفكر إنه نحن نكون شهود، أقدم الرواية تبعي كشاهد، لكن مثل قول.
So the story he seeks to tell, he does not want to tell it as victims, but as witnesses.
تماما هيك، مثل شاهد لكن بكعبه مثل أخيل في هيك نقطة من الضحية.
But just at the end of it, there's like this little speck of a victim.
Yes.
Speaking of, thank you, Ossama. You mentioned the word witnessing, and your performance speaks about grief. But I remember very well one of the conversations we had, and when you told me that you used the fabrics from the clothing of disappearing individuals or dead individuals to knit the flowers bordering the stage. And that was like the garden of death. And you chose to keep that knowledge hidden from the audience, even though you could have used it to gain like more uniqueness. You could have talked about it, but you chose to conceal it. What does concealing do on a stage that is covertly political, but also what is our role as theater makers in witnessing? And how does witnessing and commemoration function today in the midst of continuous disappointments?
أنا بحس إنه المسرح هو في مجموعة أسرار صغيرة بتكون موجودة بين فريق العمل.
Ossama is saying that in theater there's a bundle of secrets that are always present there between those working together.
العرض هو بيكون قمة الجبل اللي الناس هي بتشوفه.
And so the final product is just the tip of the iceberg of what people see from the process.
لكن البروفا هي رحلة طويلة من تبادل الأشياء، وأنا بحس البروسيس أهم من النتيجة. دائما أنا بالنسبة لي بحب أعيش البروفات، تعنيني أكثر كتير من النتيجة النهائية.
And so actually the rehearsals are a very long process, and for Ossama this process is more important than the final product.
وفي لحظات صغيرة هيك بحس إنه هي حلو تضل أسرار موجودة تحرضنا إلنا، تكون دافع لنا نحن للفريق تبعنا.
فإذا هول اللحظات وهول الأسرار so those moments, those little secrets, they are just they are good to instigate themselves. They are good to incite themselves to do a better job, and without having to necessarily to be present in the final work.
وهي في كود بينترك هيك كتير صغير وكتير هش بينترك جوا العرض، ما ضروري يكون مباشر وما ضروري يكون هالقد مسلط الضوء عليه.
And so like a kind of code remains in the final product, in the final show, and for Ossama it's not important to highlight it.
استخدمنا نحن كمان يعني في عائلة ابنهم مفقود كان بلبنان، فكانت صورته موجودة بالعرض. نحن استخدمنا حتى صور شخصية، صور ناس مفقودين أو ضحايا موتى أو كذا. في عائلة شافت صورة ابنهم، فانخلق بيننا وبينهم أسئلة. وفي كتير ناس بعد ما يحضروا العرض يمسكوا التولز أو الصور أو الكذا ويصير في هذا الحوار. هذا الحوار، هي الأسئلة، هذا الديالوج اللي بيصير بين المتلقي والعرض، هو أنا بالنسبة لي هو كتير كتير ما بيقل قوة عن لحظة العرض بس.
And so even during the show, they had put on stage the picture of a man who was lost. And so his family and those that were watching the play also were able to see it. And so because of this, they didn't know who that was, but questions were created, and they even used tools that were put on stage, like props. And for him, this is very important because it created this kind of dialogue. It raised questions. And this is what is most important between the receiver and those on stage.
Thank you, Ossama. And let me just chime in for 30 seconds here to say that your choice also, in my view, reflects the idea of avoiding a moment of where theater was using a lot of, that element of over highlighting the Syrian tragedy and falling into victimhood. There is this element of superhighway of image culture, and you were kind of avoiding that element of aestheticization that can be used in a counterproductive way. Sahar, I leave the last question to you before we open it up to the audience.
Thank you, Mona. Great. And I'll open it up a little to ask about the impact of this work outside of the Syrian or Lebanese context. What does it mean to you both to have the works that you shared with us be shared in such a transnational context years after it was made, especially in this very moment? Noura, do you want to comment on that before we turn it to Ossama?
In fact, this is very important for me because during the war, we haven't the chance to see Syrian artists, what they are doing outside of Syria. And at the same time, nobody can see what we are doing here. And I will be honest to say that when we uploading the performance on YouTube for this event, I was a little bit surprised because I was seeing something that talking to this moment, to now, to 2025. And I never ever thought in the time of 2016 when we were working on survivals, I never thought that survival will talk but about that moment. But it was like, and that is very important for me, and I think it's very important for all the group. But the most important that, yes, I started to receive feedbacks from the audience, and yeah, it has been very long time for me to have, because the last time we were doing our work in front of international audience was in 2010. We were participating in Amsterdam in Julie Dance Festival. And yeah, now it's really some kind of a window. We open the window to the world. It's good.
ايه انا عكس نورا، انا بزعل انه شغلي كل شغلي الجديد ما في فرصة انه يتقدم بسوريا.
Actually, for Osama, he's actually sad that all of his newer works were not able to be presented in Syria.
بس يعني فرصة كمان اسمع صدى شو اشتغلنا شو فكرنا وشو اشتغلنا بال 2018 انا والفريق هذا، ولو بحس انه العرض هو لليوم، يعني هلا وقته، وخصوصا باسئله مثل الفقد ومثل الحداد والاضحيات.
But it was actually an opportunity to hear from the echo of what people heard about the presentation, and especially now that this is the time for such plays, and they are as relevant then as they are most relevant now, especially since they deal with loss, mourning, and sacrifices.
وهذا الحلو بالفن والمسرح كمان، انه بيعطينا فرصة انه نقابل انه نكسب جنسيات جديدة بناء على خشبة وحوار وأسئلة بنتبادلها مع ناس يمكن مهن تانية ما ممكن يتقابلوا فيها مع بعض.
And that's actually what's nice about art, it's that it gives us some sort of new nationality based on the conversations that we have with people that we would have otherwise never have met.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Ossama. Sahar, go ahead.
No, I'm asking you, do we have questions from audiences? Are you?
We're going to open it up for some questions. I don't have anything here. Kumars, do you have a question? We still have a couple of questions to ask, but we thought to open it up to the audience if there are any questions. I know that there are a couple of people who didn't show up here in the screen, like Professor Ted Zeiter. He sent me an email and he told me he's able to get in, but for some reason he does not show. Ted, if you have a question, please email me, QMars.
Yeah, I just want to thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. I love the message of shared humanity in theater that you both are mentioning. One question that I have is that how do you connect your work with other Middle Eastern theater cultures? If it does, I mean, you don't have to, but I wonder if like you find any relation, connections, lineage with theater in the Middle East from outside of Syria, Lebanon, or from the past in Syria, Lebanon. Yeah.
And Noura, would you like to respond, or Ossama?
Unfortunately, now we need to rethink that because we don't know yet where Syria is going. We don't know how we will continue our work. In the past, before the revolution, the Syrian revolution, yes, I was working with, I had a lot of partnership in Lebanon, in Jordan, in Dubai, and during the war, we couldn't have any chances to share our work in the Middle East. I hope, I don't know, but I hope that it will be reopened for us to because I love to not only to present a performance in the Arab countries, I love to work with artists from Arab countries too.
Ossama?
I'm not understand the question really.
I think that Kumars asked Kumars, would you like to talk and rephrase your question? I wouldn't want to.
Yeah, sure. No, of course. I just want to say, like, do you find any connection between your work and work of other Middle Eastern theater practitioners outside of Lebanon and Syria, or from Lebanon and Syria in the past, basically? Like, what connections do you find between your work and work of other practitioners in the region?
And Kumars, here you're talking about aesthetics, you're talking about text.
Yes, I'm talking about form. A lot of things are like, a lot of my question is about form, really. Obviously, also content, themes are part of it, but form especially.
اوكي رح احاول اخذ يعني اكون ايجابي شو سمعت من السؤال، بمعنى انه شو الاستاتيك تبع المسرح تبعنا. ما بعرف شو مواصفات المسرح الشرقي مثلا، مسرح الميدل ايست، يعني انا ما بعرف شو هو. هل نحن عندنا مواصفات محدده للمسرح تبعنا؟
So he will try to, if I understand correctly, try to be like positive about what is meant with our connections to others in the Middle East, because he doesn't know, Ossama, if we have specifically standards, like aesthetic standards here in the region.
أنا بحس إنه اللي بيخليني اتواصل مع اي فنان هو الحاجة والاصرار على الوصول لمعنى محدد.
And what makes him feel to be able to communicate with any artist is their mutual need to reach something specific.
بيكون أول شغلة يكون نحن فنانين من سوريا ومن لبنان ومن فلسطين من بلجيكا ومن فرنسا.
And so we are artists from Belgium, France, Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine.
أول شغلة اتفقنا عليها إنه نحن نزت الباسبورات تبعنا برا الباب.
We agreed to just leave our passports outside the door.
وبلشنا نتواصل لنخلق معنى هيك سخن جديد. فأنا بحس حالي بنتمي يعني بنتمي لمجموعة من الأفكار بيمارسوها مجموعة من الفنانين بغض النظر عن المكان تبعه.
And so when they started communicating to reach like a new meaning, and that's the whole point, that that's what connects them to others, is that they agree and they are like so yeah, they agree on one meaning. That's their goal.
ففي كتير تقاطعات بتصير بيني وبين فنانين بفلسطين أو بمصر أو بالكونغو أو باليابان أو بالمكسيك.
And that's why he finds a lot of intersections between him and artists from, well, be it Egypt, Congo, Japan, or other countries.
Yes.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank
I
you.
like thank you, Kumar, for the question, and Osama also for the brave reflection. I think it's always yeah, boxing artist. I don't think the question actually was intending to box you. I think Kumar's question was actually quite interesting in terms of Middle Eastern traditional techniques. That's how I understood it, like in terms of, for instance, if there's a hakawati in a performance, if you use that technique and whether that's a connection. But I loved your reflection, and I loved your very pointy statement. My belonging is to an idea versus a form. So Mona, I know you unmuted as well. Go ahead.
And as you said, Osama, I belong to the tribe of theater makers. You mentioned that very clearly in the beginning of this session, even though I feel that there is something, and allow me to disagree a little bit with you on your work, especially on the other side of the garden. There is this element of fragmentation, and we are fragmented human beings in the region due to the continuous traumas that we go through. We relate to time, and we relate to the way we tell the story differently. But that's just me. That's just my opinion and my research. Allow me to ask a question that Ted sent us to Osama. He's asking about the process of creating work in the diaspora. The diaspora means Lebanon, because Osama is in Lebanon. How you work with funding organization, how this impacts the kind of work you create, and what type of audiences attend, and how you feel the work is received. And also allow me to redirect the question later on to Noura. Mark is translating.
Sorry. Yes. عيد معلي. Sorry, because I take time, because my language, for that I like work physical theater, because I hate all the language, and Arabic, I hate the Arabic.
Take your time. I'm happy to also support translating if that is helpful.
شغلك
Yeah.
والاشخاص اللي بيجوا بيحضروا.
Yes.
كيف تتلقى لمسرحياتك؟
أنا فعلا ما عندي أي خطة للشغل مع برا. كل شيء عم ينخلق بالصدفة معنا. بصير انه عم بلتقى، يعني في اشخاص وفنانين عم يحضروا شغلنا، وعم هيك خطوة بتخلق خطوة بتخلق خطوة.
There really isn't a plan. So he just needs a bunch of artists, and one step at a time he finds that the work has been completed. هو قصده أكثر بلبنان، أنت إنه كسوري كيف عم تشتغل بلبنان إنه برات بلدك.
اوكي، انا بالنسبه لي بقول لبنان عطتني شغلتين مهمين، عطتني قبر وعطتني مسرح.
Osama considers that Lebanon gave him two things. It gave him like a cemetery or a tomb, and it gave him theater.
وانا انا كحدا بيشتغل بالمسرح، انا لبنان كثير طورتني، كثير حطتني على الارض.
And as someone who works in theater, he considered that Lebanon, he developed a lot, and it put him on, and it grounded him.
بلبنان بالنسبة لي كثير فهمت ليش بشتغل مسرح وشو معنى العمل الجماعي.
It's in Lebanon that he understood what it means to work in theater and what collective work means.
وفي فرصة بسوريا ما كان مستحيل يكون عندي مكان اشتغل مسرح فيه، لأنه ضمن قانون الطوارئ والتجمع فكرة مكان مدني خاص مستحيل يكون بسوريا.
And unfortunately the work that he is doing here was impossible for him to do in Syria.
بالنسبة لي السر هو بأنه بلبنان صار عندي مكان عم بلتقى فيه أنا ومجموعة أشخاص، وعم نمارس غبائنا بكل بساطة فيه.
And so the secret to the whole thing is that he just has a place in Lebanon where he gets to enjoy with others being stupid and whatever and other things and being themselves.
Yeah.
Thank you, Osama. Noura, would you like to respond to the same questions?
I think if I can answer some of the question. So how works with funding organizations? Before 2011, we created a very long partnership with Foreign Culture Centers in Syria and Damascus, French Culture Center, Goethe Institute, CCF, and we worked through them with very different art organization outside. After 2011, everything closed. In fact, we stopped working from 2011 till 2015. We came back with workshop, and after that we created Survival, who we couldn't have any kind of fund for it. In 2018, we create another performance titled Embraces with Eduardo Galeano texts. It was funded by ATHE Foundation. Arab Culture صندوق AFAق. So it's very having during the war it was impossible to have fund from outside, and I have personally very huge problem with organizations, because the name of, like, the titles of, and this is my problem from the beginning, it's not a new one, title of being a partner or giving support others, it's not really like that with us. In fact, and I think it's not only with us, in general there is, and this is not wrong to have an agenda. Every organization has its own agenda, it's not wrong, but they don't really understand the environment that we work in. So you feel always that you are like, you need to do your work in the system of others, in the system of the funder, which is something during the war was really, really, really hard. And what I'm trying to do now, for example, after like 26 years of working with organization, I'm trying to be really independent and not depend on fund 100%, because that's also affects what you want to talk about. For example, with survivals, no one wanted to fund the other side of the story because it's not in the agenda, it's not giving work to the organizations. So free and independent art in the system of fund, it's not really true. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Noura. And I'd like to clarify one thing, and then Ossama, you want to say something, right? But let me clarify one thing first. Noura, you're talking about the context inside Syria, and I'm going to give a very, very quick example to clarify what we're talking about to the Western audience. Like, if an artist living inside Syria is asking for funding from an international organization, they need to ask for receipts and for invoices, which is something that is very, very difficult to get inside Syria. That's the simplest question, and I'm going to stop there to give the word to Ossama. Ossama, did you want to say something?
Sorry. Yeah. Now I understand the question. What mean? نحن في مؤسستين أو ثلاثة بيدعموا العمل الثقافي بالمنطقة تبعنا.
So there are 2 or 3 organizations that help fund these cultural events in our region.
وسؤالنا اليومي نحن كل يوم بالفرق انه نحن كيف بدنا نعمل استدامة عن طريق استدامة ثقافية، يعني شو شكل الموديل الاقتصادي الثقافي اللي بدنا نشتغل عليه.
And the daily question that is asked in Koon Theater is what is the model, the economic and long-term model, financial model that we can use that to be able to work in the long term.
أنا أول 5 عروض بسوريا عملتهم عملتهم على حسابي.
So the first 5 performances that he did in Syria, he did them, he was independent from his own pocket.
بلبنان صار في فرصة بعد انه كل ما اخذ تمويل من مؤسسة اللي هن الآفاق او المورد او اتسترا بحسن اعمل انتاج مسرحي.
And in Lebanon, we had the opportunity that every time we got a fund from be it AFAQ or a Mawrid, he was able to, from this money, to be able to do a performance.
هلا في فرصة انه صار في تعاونات مع الناشونال ثياتر ببروكسل او مع دانسينج اون ذا ايدج بهولندا.
And sometimes there are opportunities with other international organizations to be able to do our shows in a foreign country.
في عنا إصرار بالفرقة إنه نحن كل كون لاب لازم يكون مجاني، لأنه نحن بالنسبة لنا ما لازم يكون العمل الثقافي يضل بإيد النخبة.
And we insist that Koon Lab, which is a workshop we do in Koon Theater, it should be free of charge for everyone, because this type of work, it should not be made only for the elite.
واستوديو كون اللي هو عملته أنا بسبب حسن رابح اللي هو راقص سوري انتحر بال 2016 لأنه ما عنده مكان يتمرن فيه.
And what encouraged Ossama to open our studio, which is called Koon, was because of Hassan Rabih, which committed suicide in 2016 because he didn't have a place to perform, to rehearse his dancing.
فكانت الفكرة إنه نحن يكون في فضاء مدني مستقل، أي حدا ما معه مصاري يجي ياخده ببلاش.
So the idea was that there would be an independent space that anyone who wants to rehearse would be able to do so for free.
So بعتقد شغلنا كله خسارة.
So our work is largely consists of a lot of losses.
وبعد كورونا وصار موضوع سفر العروض لأوروبا صار أصعب بكتير، لأنه السوق الثقافي تبعنا نحن اللي بيطلع لنا مصاري هو أوروبا.
And since the COVID outbreak, the chance present our shows outside was severely limited, and that was our main way of income.
بس هلا انا فعلا كل يوم بسأل حالي، انا عندي بنت وبدي اعلم بنتي وبدي كبرها، انه شو الجدوى من انه انا مصر ضل عم بشتغل مسرح.
But unfortunately, one question that keeps coming up now that he has a daughter was, and because of all of these losses and financial troubles, what's the point of continuing to pursue theater?
That's disheartening, because I feel that we all ask the same question in different directions. I don't have a girl, but I don't have a daughter, but I always ask myself, what's the point? Sahar, yeah, go ahead.
I add my voice to the disappointment but that's, you know, that's disappointment in the field, I want to say, especially you know, how the lack of response to the genocide, but that's a completely different conversation for a different panel. We do have only like 8 minutes, I believe, Muna, to end this session. We have a question in the chat. I'll just ask it to be fair to our audiences, though I feel it's a little unclear. I'm just going to ask it. If you can make sense of it, go ahead. Otherwise, Muna and I would also love to give you a moment to let us know, to tell us what are you working on now. You know, and I think it might actually you know, kind of build on the question in the chat. The question in the chat, oh, here, it's edited now.
We have two other questions, actually.
Oh, maybe that's not the one I'm reading. Okay. Let me read the first one. How can we restart the work to ensure theater becomes a social phenomenon that speaks to Syria's priorities? And I'm assuming the question is about restarting the work in Syria. I don't think the work ever stopped in Syria, but you can correct me. Syrian artists are obviously responding to Syria priorities, but again, I might be mistaken. And then the next question is, as Syria enters the next fragile state as a nation, how can theater shift to be a tool for civic practice and imagination, to be inviting and inclusive? And again, from what I know about Syrian theater, what I've watched in Syria and outside of Syria, there's a lot of imagination there. Ossama and Noura, please, do you want to respond to one of or both of these questions? Do you want to tell us what you're working on now? Noura?
I want to speak a little bit about imagination and artistic solution. In fact, and it will be a little bit strange maybe, but for me, I was lucky enough as an artist to work in a country that you cannot say whatever you want to say in direct way, because it forced me to find another way to say it. And Syria in the worst circumstances forced me as an artist to involved all the time in researches about the expressive body, about the language, about the space, about the audience, about because you know, when you work with the body, there is no specific meaning you want to share, but there is a specific meaning you work on in the rehearsals. So I don't, my fear, it's not about a Syrian artist's imagination. My fear is about how the new fragile stage in Syria understand the art and the culture in the first place. For me, there is a gap now between how we as Syrian artists understand the art and culture and the role of both to rebuild a nation and a country, and how the government, the new government, they have others perspective which is not at all resemble to ours. So, and we are trying to open a conversation that didn't open yet because of the horror happens in the coast was happened and now in Sweden. We didn't have till now a chance to really open an honest and very, if you want, national political cultural conversation with the government just to be in the same page. So the question now, it's really about that. It's not about the capacity of or capability of Syrian artists to express themselves or to have an imagination. Now the problem, the huge step that we need to make is how to really find a way to rebuild the understanding of the new government of what culture means and how can we use it to rebuild our country.
Thank you, Noura. Ossama?
أنا بقول إنه المسرح بيملك الخفة إنه يتناول أسئلة كتير معقدة وأفكار كتير معقدة ويعيد صياغتها بطرق متعددة وضرورية اليوم.
So he's saying that theater for him has the sleight of hand to raise a lot of complicated questions and rephrase them in other new meaningful ways.
وبعتقد إنه ضروري المسرح اليوم يروح للأماكن المهمشة.
And for him, it's very important that theater will go to the marginalized places.
أحكي لكم قصة. أنا أبي ميكانيكي سيارات.
His father is a mechanical car mechanic.
وأمي أمية.
And his mother doesn't know how to write.
ببيتنا كان في بس قرآن.
In his house, there was only a Quran.
أول كتاب قريته بحياتي كان عمري 21 سنة أو 22 سنة.
And it was the first book that he read in his life when he was 21 years old.
وأول عرض قررت ساويه عرض شارع لأنه كان بدي بابا يحضر المسرح.
And the first show that he ever did was a street performance because he wanted his father to be in attendance.
يعني وأنا جاي من بيئة شوي مهمشة، يعني مساكن برزة هي منطقة شوي شعبية.
And he came from a place in Syria that was rather marginalized.
أنا بعتقد إنه المسرح بيملك الخفة إنه يدخل لأماكن بيحسن يزعزع هذا يكسر الزوايا الحادة هي ويحاول يناقش إما بسخرية أو ما بعرف شو وسيلة. أنا بحس إنه اليوم دوري أنا كل شيء عم صممه براسي أنا عم شوفه اليوم بالآبون وعم شوفه بجوبر وعم شوفه بالسويدة وعم شوفه باللاذقية، عم شوفه بالشارع يعني.
And so theater has a sleight of hand to like enter places where and to really shake things to their roots and use sarcasm and whatever else it has. And that's why for him, he sees that in many places actually in Gabon and other countries.
بحس انه هو وسيلة لحتى يكون في هذا التواصل الاجتماعي اللي عم يكسر الناس توقف جنب بعضها، يرجعوا يوثقوا الناس توقف جنب بعضها بغض النظر عن كل الايديولوجيات تبعهم.
And it's a way for that all people will for once like stick together and be able to communicate and break all of these ideologies that they might have.
تماما انه انا بحس انه المسرح لازم اليوم انا اروح لعند العالم، مو العالم تجي لعندي.
And that's why he feels that there is this need that he goes to people and not that people have to go to the theater to watch a performance.
تسمحي لي منى أعمل مداخلة صغيرة؟
Of course.
Okay, so I don't want to be to show a dark image of what's happening now in Syria, but I will give you an example. For example, today there is some kind of censorship that asked theater creators to not have actors contact between actors on the stage, for example. So that is that our fact now. Yes, it's very, very beautiful idea to go to Sweden now and to have a performance there, but Sweden is surrounded by military forces. They cannot eat, they cannot drink, they cannot live. So yeah, I believe that art is very important, but we are a human being before to be artists, and we need to stand for the culture today, not for our own project and how our own, like how we feel we can like rebuild our work in Syria. Syria is in very, very bad situation today, and people really even, yeah, there is thanks God that High Institute of Dramatic Art still close to itself, and there is a work there with the students and but since the events in Sweden, all cultural events are stopped in Syria. And yesterday, the Minister of Syrian Culture said that culture is a matter of national security. So we are returning to Assad regime in very, very maybe worse image. So rethinking, I agree with Ossama that we need to rethink, but it's not easy, it's not normal, it's very, very sensitive in these days. And yeah, there is a need for people to be together in the sense of national belonging. Syrians, today we have a Syrian identity problem, which I believe that theater can do something about that, but not in the ways that we used to do. We need to find another ways, another tools. We need to recreate our work in our minds to really have a future for culture and art in our country.
Noura, can you expand a little bit about those tools? Like, I know that you are very, very, very active, like within the performance landscape, but also beyond it, like you are active socially. And I received 2 days ago kind of a kind of statement to sign. Your theater company released 2 manifestos in 2016 and so on. What are those other ways now, here and today? And I think this responds to the first question that speaks to Syria's priorities today. And yes, Noura, and then we'll check with Ossama as well.
I believe I don't have a fixed answer to your question, but I think that we need to just admit that we don't know. This is our problem, because we know everything, you know. We are the Syrians who lived during the revolution. We use the same tools to resist the things that we don't know. We didn't really reflect with ourselves and to see what our responsibility as a revolution to what we are arrived today. We don't have the courage to say that we were mistaken in this and that and that and that, and reflect how we can resolve these problems. We insist to be the people, the artists, the citizens who knows everything. So this is the step that I believe is very important now, just to have a little bit of courage to say, no, it's not only regime's mistakes. We made mistakes, and we need to face it now, and we need to learn from it, and without this we cannot find any new tools. Mona, if you understand what's you know what I mean. I mean, you need to face yourself. You need to put your mistakes on the paper in front of you. You need to look to the mirror and decide that's okay, I have the mistakes and I don't want to do them again. And that's what I'm doing as social You said that I'm active socially. Yeah, that's what I'm doing now. I'm going every day to the Institute of Dramatic Arts, to the Opera House. I'm sitting with all the artists that I know, and I'm pushing people to just be honest with themselves and to not rely that, yeah, we know how to deal with this because this is the same. It's not the same. This is not Assad regime. This is another kind of regime, which is much more brutal, much more closed. And we need really to find a way to deal with it, to resist it, and to have our rights to raise the voices of the artists that they don't really, artists today, they don't really have a huge voice today. This is a fact. This is very, very sad fact, but it is, and we need to deal with it.
Thank you, Noura. We have two more questions, and let's try to be kind of concise because we still have around 8 minutes. I think that
you promised us also the opportunity to respond and reflect.
Ossama. Yeah, did you want to say something?
Thank you for speaking so clearly and articulately and bravely, and it's disheartening, but it's important to hear what you have to say. And perhaps, Ossama, from your perspective as Syrians in the diaspora, because Noura, I believe you're in Syria right now, whereas you, Ossama, you're in Beirut, you're in Lebanon. So what can Syrians in the diaspora do to support, perhaps, is the question.
يعني أنا بحس إنه يعني ظرف الشغل بلبنان ما له كتير أفضل من سوريا يعني عمليا.
Yes, he's saying that he believes the artistic work in Lebanon might not be much better than in Syria.
بس أنا هيك بدي أقول إنه أنا بفهم يعني وبقدر وبشكر البوح اللي عملته نورا والملاحظات اللي فعلا حقيقية وفعلا أساسية. بس أنا بالنسبة لي هذا المحرض اللي بخليني أفكر ليش بدي أشتغل مسرح.
And he understands and appreciates what Noura has said, but for him, this is exactly the issue that really pushes him to do theater.
فايه يعني انا بتذكر انه نحن البروفات شغاله كانت الضاحيه عم تنقصف مثلا.
And so rehearsals were ongoing even as the Dahi was being bombed.
الاستوديو كون في خلف اللي هو الشاب التقني بمسرح دوار الشمس، هو وعائلته ناموا 10 ايام باستوديو كون.
And in Studio Koon, the one that used to take care of the theater, he actually slept with his family for 10 days in the theater because it's underground.
فأنا إذا بهذا الوقت ما كنت حاضر، أيمتى بدي أكون حاضر؟
So if he's not ready now, when will he ever be?
بعتقد إنه الفكرة إنه نلتقي ونحكي ونبلش نشتغل، هاي الخطوة الأولى. الأجوبة بتيجي بعدين. ما عندي دايما أجوبة، أنا عندي أسئلة، وبكل عرض بفوت عليه فعلا أنا بطلع بكم من الأسئلة أكثر بكتير من الأجوبة اللي بفوت عليها. لكن هاي اللعنة تبع بلادنا، وهذا اللي بيخلينا دايما موسومين واسم المنطقة. وبكره هي فكرة انه انت سوري، احكي لنا شلون هي نظرة الضحية، انه شلون انتم عندكم مسرح والله وكذا. هي اللعنة تبع بلادنا العزا ما عم يخلص العزا فيها.
And this is the curse, as he believes. He doesn't always have answers, but he has a lot of questions, and that's the curse of being here in the region, always being seen as a victim.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ossama. So we have two more questions. Can the artistic experimentation and theatrical innovation still be possible for the majority of the local population for which theater is already a novelty? I think that maybe we need to clarify that theater is not already a novelty first. But let's kind of think of the experimental and theatrical innovation, which I leave the answer to you, even though I know what it is.
I think that Noura kind of spoke clearly about,
Yes.
you know, how the impossibility of kind of doing theater right now. So I don't know if Ossama, you want to respond to that question. Noura, do you have anything to add also?
That's what I was really talking about, that what we are trying to do now is just to understand the page, if you want, that the government or the minister who is responsible of the theater and cultural event in Syria, how does they understand the culture? Because the huge, for me personally as an artist, there is a cultural attack on Damascus. You see, I don't know if you heard about buildings, I mean, the government selling very old buildings in Damascus that represent a huge history of our city. They trying to rebuild things that really, if they will destroy it, they will destroy a huge part of our history. It's not only about theater, it's all the culture that this government came with. It's about selling and money and project. It's not about people and the human. And if I can be much more clear, for me, Syrians, Lebanese are not much more different from Gazawis to America and Israel. They don't see us as you know, they will not be, there's no problem if we all died, you know, exactly as they do in Gaza today. And this is what we need to see and understand really, really clearly, because and I agree with Ossama, Lebanon and Syria are facing the same scary situation now. There is a talk about division, about taking part of Lebanon to Syria, about entering Israel in the middle of the area, all these things that really related not only to, it's related first of all to everyday living, to our audience, if I can call them, because Syrian citizens are my audience. I'm working in Damascus all my life. And secondly, what kind of culture this will reproduce? What kind of culture will reproduce with this kind of plan of being like, you know, in a huge, I feel sometimes when every day I see how the project of the you know, deals with European, with American and Israeli governments, the path just give me a sense that we are like a huge product that they want to share together. So talking about theater in this kind of you know, closed and very sensitive moment, I think it's not. We need to do something before. We need to, as artists, we need to go closer to the people, to try to spread our feelings, or our places with our relationship with our audience to our society, because our society is in a huge division in this moment. So it's not about the future of the theater. It's about the culture, the Syrian culture, that it at risk today.
Thank you, Noura. The rage and the passion in your voice is landing quite clearly.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be at all. On the contrary, I think it's very, very important to hear your voice and your tone. And I would take it one step further to say the question today is about humanity, really. The culture of humanity, we're losing it everywhere. And for one, as an artist, I'm paralyzed. I can't do theater in the times of genocide. Nothing seems to matter, really.
And just one word to be with you in the same page. Yes, it is a problem of humanity, and it's a global problem.
Absolutely.
Because in Gaza, people are dying in front of our eyes since 2 years. And in Syria, we have the same feeling that, yes, today, if they will bomb us, the whole world will watching us, just watching us.
Absolutely.
So this is a very huge question of existence and cultural existence before theater and other form of art existence.
Thank you very much. And I think when we said during COVID, we're all in this together, we forgot about this when genocide started to happen. And since I think it's appropriate to remind our audiences, who I would assume mostly from the US, that this is the works of the US government, really, what Noura is talking about, and everything that we're witnessing in the region today, from the genocide in Gaza to the division that's happening in Syria to bombing of Beirut, etc., is the work of the US government supported by the US citizen tax money. So it is really, I feel, Noura, now you're making me reflect that this is perhaps what we should have started with this session. But we wanted to celebrate you. We wanted to celebrate the amazing work that you've been doing for years. And we wanted a chance to introduce your work to our audiences here in the US. And I feel, I hope we did it justice. I know Mona said we have 1 more minute a while ago, so I want to
actually, we're 2 minutes beyond the time, but I think it's very, very important to hear every single second of this conversation and to let it be here, be present. We need to claim the voice. We need to claim our voices in that specific moment. But unfortunately, we need to close and we need to end the conversation. I'd like to remind our audiences, the people who are listening in whole round, and ATHE, that we do have another session of O-Teatron tomorrow at 12 with Mudar Al-Haji, with the artist Mudar Al-Haji, and we will continue the conversation tomorrow, because it will never stop. And also we have lots of events happening. We have the sessions are being recorded for ATHE audience. So please go ahead and watch some of the events taking place with the Middle Eastern Theater. We have right now, at the same time we were having this session, there is a session around Palestine, around Palestinian theater. And this is also something important to watch because the session is already recorded. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ossama. Thank you, Sahar, and thank you, Noura, and all the people who attended. We look forward to seeing you, hopefully, when the days are a little bit brighter. Have a great day.
Thank you, Muna. Thank you for having me. It's a very, very important conversation. Thank you so much.